The mountain didn't care who she was. It was 8,000 feet of frozen defiance, jagged, merciless, and ancient. Night pressed heavy over the Hindu Kush, the kind of black that swallowed light whole. A single rope line cut across the cliff face, trembling in the wind. And hanging from it, alone, was Lieutenant Mara Vance, U.S. Navy SEAL, Bravo Detachment, Special Recon. 2 minutes to summit, came the voice over comms. "Copy that," she replied, breath steady, fingers like iron against the cold. They'd been tracking a rogue contractor convoy for weeks. Men who'd stolen a crate marked USN property, restricted bio-assets. They weren't soldiers. But they knew how to vanish. And tonight, they'd chosen the mountains for cover. The team was almost at the top when it happened. "Vance, hold." She froze. Captain Laird's voice was too sharp. Not fear, not caution. Control. She looked up. Above her, the faint outline of 2 men on the ridge. One was Laird. The other wasn't from her unit. The unknown man raised something, not a rifle. A boot. And kicked. Her grip snapped. The world dropped out beneath her. For a moment, she didn't scream. SEALs don't. She just fell, silently, into a pit of wind and darkness. Then everything went black. The mountain didn't care who she was. It was 8,000 feet of frozen defiance, jagged, merciless, and ancient. Night pressed heavy over the Hindu Kush, the kind of black that swallowed light whole. A single rope line cut across the cliff face, trembling in the wind. And hanging from it, alone, was Lieutenant Mara Vance, U.S. Navy SEAL, Bravo Detachment, Special Recon. 2 minutes to summit, came the voice over comms. "Copy that," she replied, breath steady, fingers like iron against the cold. They'd been tracking a rogue contractor convoy for weeks. Men who'd stolen a crate marked USN property, restricted bio-assets. They weren't soldiers. But they knew how to vanish. And tonight, they'd chosen the mountains for cover. The team was almost at the top when it happened. "Vance, hold." She froze. Captain Laird's voice was too sharp. Not fear, not caution. Control. She looked up. Above her, the faint outline of 2 men on the ridge. One was Laird. The other wasn't from her unit. The unknown man raised something, not a rifle. A boot. And kicked. Her grip snapped. The world dropped out beneath her. For a moment, she didn't scream. SEALs don't. She just fell, silently, into a pit of wind and darkness. Then everything went black. Her HUD flickered, broken visor feed. Altimeter read 6,204 feet. She'd fallen nearly 2,000 feet down the sheer cliff. That should have been impossible. But there she was, breathing. Her SEAL training kicked in like instinct. Assess. Move. Adapt. She checked her pack, fractured, but intact. 1 flare. Half a water pouch. No rope. No rifle. She pressed her gloved hand against the snow, felt the direction of wind. Then she saw it, a faint orange glow against the rocks above. A campfire. They're still up there. Something cold shifted in her chest. Not fear. Resolve. She tore a strip from her thermal liner, wrapped it around her wrist to stop the bleeding. Her eyes found the same ridge she'd been kicked from. A sheer, jagged nightmare of ice and granite. Her breath came slow, steady. Her hand gripped the rock. Her boot jammed into a frozen crack. And she began to climb. Each movement was pain layered on precision. Each inch, a battle. But she wasn't climbing to survive, she was climbing for payback. Halfway up, her mind started replaying the faces. Captain Laird. The stranger beside him. And the sound of the rope slicing under her gloves. That wasn't an accident. That was a setup. At 7,000 feet, she stopped to rest on a ledge barely wider than her boots. Her hands were raw, blood frozen against the rock. She took a slow breath, eyes scanning the cliff above. Then she saw it. A dropped tactical glove, pinned in the ice. Laird's. She pulled it free and stuffed it into her vest. "You'll answer for this," she whispered. A storm began to roll in, sharp wind, snow slicing sideways. Visibility dropped to 0. But still she climbed. Still she rose. Hours later, she reached the ridge, the same place they'd thrown her off. The fire was out, but the prints were fresh. 3 sets of boots. 1 blood trail leading north. She crouched, scanning the ground. 1 shell casing. 5.56 millimeters, American issue. Her throat tightened. So that's how you do it now, Captain? Kill your own. Then she heard it, the distant crackle of a radio. Confirm elimination. Package secure. Her eyes narrowed. That wasn't Laird's voice. Too formal. Too controlled. CA maybe, or someone higher. Copy, another voice replied.
No witnesses.
She's gone. She smiled, a small, dangerous smile. Not yet. If you're still with me, soldier, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this mission's only just begun, and she's not climbing for survival anymore. As dawn broke, the first light hit the peak, gold bleeding into white. Vance stood at the edge, breathing hard, frost clinging to her eyelashes. Below her, the valley stretched endless and silent. She retrieved the dropped rifle from the snow, one of theirs. Loaded. Chambered. Ready. Her radio sputtered, a single line of encrypted chatter she barely caught. Extraction point Bravo. 0600, burn the evidence. She started toward the signal, silent, invisible, alive again. Every muscle screamed, every breath cut deep, but the mission wasn't over. Now it was personal. She whispered to herself as the snow began to fall again. You shoved me off a cliff, but seals don't fall. We return. The wind howled. Somewhere ahead, men thought they were safe. They were wrong. Dawn on the ridge. The storm had passed, leaving a wasteland of white and silence. Lieutenant Mara Vance crouched near the smoldering remains of the enemy's campfire, tracing a boot print in the ice. Still warm. Her hand tightened around the rifle she'd scavenged. Standard M4, suppressor fitted, sight misaligned. Whoever carried it had experience, but not discipline. Merc work. Not military. She'd spent years learning to read battlefields like language, and this one told her everything. 3 men. 1 injured. They were heading north toward a ridgeline extraction point. And they had something the Pentagon would kill to retrieve. She slipped the broken radio out of her vest, pulled the flashcard from its port, and slotted it into her tablet. The feed flickered, classified headers, redacted ops, and 1 file name still intact. Project Icarus. Her eyes narrowed. She'd heard that name once before, whispered in a corridor in Coronado. A DARPA experiment rumored to involve bio-augmentation. The kind of thing SEALs joked about until they saw the funding disappear overnight. If those mercs had stolen Icarus data, it wasn't just treason. It was an open wound on national security. She moved fast, staying below the snow line, shadows stretching long in the morning light. Her breathing matched the rhythm of her steps. Every sound mattered, the crack of ice, the hum of distant rotors, the whisper of danger carried by the wind. 2 hours later, she spotted them. 3 figures moving slow along the ridge, 1 limping heavily. Through her scope, she saw their gear. Not army. Private contractor insignias scrubbed off, the kind of soldiers who took money, not oaths. The injured one struggled to keep pace. The leader barked something, shoved him forward. That's when Vance recognized the voice. Captain Laird. Her pulse slowed. You're alive, Captain, she murmured. Good. That makes this personal. She stalked them from above, closing distance with surgical precision. When one of the mercs peeled off to relieve himself behind a boulder, she struck. A flash of motion, 1 hand over his mouth, knife through the throat, quiet, efficient, final. She lowered the body into the snow, eyes cold, steady. Then she waited. Minutes later, Laird turned back. Jackson. You good? Silence. Laird raised his rifle, scanning the rocks. Stay sharp. Something's off. He didn't even see her move. She dropped from the ridge, landed behind him, rifle pressed to the back of his neck. Drop it. He froze. Vance. Keep your hands where I can see them. He did. Slowly. Guess they didn't finish the job, he said. Guess not. Why? She demanded. Why did you shove me off that ridge? He didn't answer. Just smirked, like a man who'd already made peace with betrayal. Icarus, she said. You stole the package. Laird finally turned his head slightly. You think you know what's in that crate? I know enough. He chuckled darkly. Then you don't know a damn thing. The Navy built something they couldn't control. We were supposed to destroy it. Instead, we took it. Figured we'd sell it back to them later. Sell it back, she spat. You sold out your team. He shrugged. Orders got muddy. You know how that goes. Vance's jaw tightened. What's in the crate? He smiled. Too wide, too calm. You'll find out when it opens. A gunshot split the air. Laird dropped instantly, blood spreading across his shoulder. From the ridge, the remaining merc fired again. Vance dove for cover, returning fire. Rounds kicked up snow and stone around her. 2 men against 1. Odds were bad. But she wasn't counting odds. She was counting distance. She flanked right, sliding behind a snowbank, popping off 2 bursts. One merc went down, chest red against the white snow. The other, the shooter, disappeared behind the crate. Vance rolled, fired low, hitting his knee. He screamed, dropped his weapon, and fell forward. She advanced, rifle steady. Who hired you? He laughed through the pain. You really don't know, do you? She pressed the barrel to his helmet. Try me. He coughed. Your own command. Her finger froze. Say that again. The whole thing, was bait. They wanted to see if you'd survive the fall. She stepped back, shock cutting through her training. What the hell are you talking about? He tried to grin through blooded teeth. Icarus wasn't a weapon, Lieutenant. It was a test. You're the experiment. Then his body went still. She stood in silence, snow falling around her, her breath visible in sharp bursts. A faint hiss of static came from Laird's radio. Control, this is strike team. Extraction delayed. Confirm status of subject Vance. Her grip tightened on the radio. Then she pressed the transmit button. Subject Vance reporting, she said, voice low and cold. Status, operational. A pause. Then, copy, Lieutenant. Proceed to Phase 2. Her pulse spiked. They'd expected her to live. They wanted her to continue. She realized then, she wasn't the hunter anymore. She was part of something far larger. And whoever Control was, they were still watching. She dragged the crate closer, wiped away the frost from its surface. The serial number glowed faintly under her flashlight. Icarus 09. Property of Naval Research Command. Below that, Bioadaptive Subject V. Vance. Her breath caught. No. Her reflection stared back from the crate's metal surface. And next to her reflection, another face appeared. A man. Not alive. Not dead. Projected from within the crate, flickering like a ghost. Lieutenant Vance, it said. Welcome back. The hologram faded as quickly as it appeared, leaving her in silence. Her gloves shook slightly as she brushed the snow away. Her own name burned across the metal. Icarus 09. Bioadaptive. They hadn't been testing a weapon. They'd been testing her. She looked up at the sky, clouds closing in again like the lid of a coffin. You wanted to see if I'd survive the fall, she whispered. Now you'll see what I do after it. She slung her rifle, turned toward the extraction ridge, and started walking. Not as prey, but as the experiment they failed to contain. The wind howled through the peaks behind her. And somewhere above, a drone blinked red, tracking her every move. The wind screamed like the ghosts of the fallen. Snow and static filled the mountains, but Lieutenant Vance didn't stop. Every step forward was defiance, against death, betrayal, and the invisible hand that had made her a weapon. Hours later, she reached an abandoned relay station. Steel doors hung from their hinges, and a frozen corpse in a navy jacket slumped against the wall. His badge still read, Drive E. Keller, Naval Research Command. She stepped inside. The walls were lined with shattered screens, still flickering with residual data. When she powered up the main terminal, her HUD flickered, her vitals syncing automatically. Lieutenant Vance, biometric link established. Welcome to the Icarus initiative. Her pulse quickened. Computer, she said. Display classified data, Project Icarus, version 09. The screen crackled. Lines of text formed. Project Icarus objective. To engineer soldiers capable of autonomous survival under terminal conditions. Neural reinforcement and regenerative biometrics through adaptive nanocyte infusion. Subject 09, Lieutenant Mara Vance. She froze. She wasn't part of Icarus. She was Icarus. Another file opened automatically, a field log marked Command, Priority ENCOYPT. The face of Rear Admiral Sloan appeared on screen, voice calm and cold. If Subject 09 survives initial termination, proceed with secondary observation. The goal is not her death, it's to see if loyalty survives augmentation. Vance's jaw clenched. They hadn't sent her on a mission. They'd sent her to die, to see what came back. Her fingers dug into the console. Loyalty, she growled. You turned loyalty into an experiment. The monitor flickered, a new signal breaking through. Lieutenant Vance, said a voice. Stand down. You were never meant to see this. She recognized it immediately. Admiral Sloan himself. The comms crackled with interference as Sloan's image appeared, projected in ghostly blue. Vance, he said evenly, I see you found your file. Impressive. Few subjects make it this far. Her rifle snapped up. You killed my team. We advanced science, he corrected. You were always the best, but flesh fails. We rebuilt you with something stronger. I didn't ask to be rebuilt. You didn't have to. The Navy doesn't ask its weapons for permission. Her breath came sharp. You think I'm your weapon? Not think, Lieutenant. No. She smirked bitterly. Then you should have made sure your weapon stayed loyal. Sloane's expression hardened. Stand down, or we'll remotely terminate your vitals. She tilted her head. Try it. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, before typing a command. The console beeped. Her HUD flared red, neural override attempt detected. Then, failure. She smiled. You can't control me anymore. How? You made me stronger. You forgot to make me obedient. She grabbed the crate, the Icarus core, and attached it to her harness. If the Admiral wanted control, he'd have to find her first. Outside, storm clouds rolled over the ridge like a steel tide. She ascended the mountain using her bare hands, muscles burning, nanocytes humming under her skin. Every grip, every pull, every heartbeat pushed her closer to vengeance. At the summit, a black extraction chopper hovered, Navy insignia visible through the snow. Over the comms, a voice barked. Lieutenant Vance. This is Echo 1. Command orders you to surrender the core. She keyed her MIC. Tell Command, she said, they'll have to climb for it. Then she fired her rifle into the rotor assembly, one precise shot. The chopper spun out, crashing in a bloom of flame below the cliffs. Moments later, a second drone dropped from the clouds, smaller, sleeker, equipped with auto-turrets. It locked onto her heat signature. She sprinted across the ridge as rounds tore through the snow at her heels. She dove behind a rock ledge, pulled a grenade from her belt, and whispered, "Let's see if Icarus can fly." She hurled the grenade into the sky. It detonated mid-air, shredding the drone in a burst of shrapnel and smoke. Then silence. Only her breathing and the wind. She activated her helmet cam, recording a final transmission. "This is Lieutenant Mara Vance, designation Icarus 09. You built me to survive. You tested my limits. And now I'm rewriting your definition of human. She stared into the lens, eyes steady, voice like steel. You wanted to see if a Navy SEAL could fall and rise again. Congratulations. I'm still rising. She switched off the recorder, crushed the transceiver under her boot, and looked out over the mountains, her battlefield, her proving ground. Then she whispered, "Let them come. I'm ready for Phase 3. And she walked into the storm. They shoved her off a mountain to kill her. But all they did was give her wings.